All right, everybody, I'm Logan Alec. I'm a CPA, and today I want to talk about some of the recent news with respect to pandemic unemployment. As most of you know, the American Rescue Plan Act, which became law back in March, provides supplemental payments of $300 per week to individuals who receive benefits through their state unemployment programs, and that funding was intended to last through Labor Day. So those who maintain eligibility through that time, we all thought they'd be able to continue getting those checks until September 6th. Now, the way this works out, of course, is that each state government still handles its own unemployment system. The federal government isn't really all that involved in that process, but the federal government sends the states the money to cover these extra pandemic-related payments, right, for everyone who's receiving unemployment through the state program, right? Of course, the controversy with these benefits has been the idea that they're artificially reducing the supply of labor by making it easier for people to avoid working. For example, if you live in South Carolina, let's say you had a minimum wage job before the pandemic. Well, minimum wage in South Carolina is $7.25 an hour. That means if you work 40 hours a week, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, then at the end of the week, you'll have made $290 gross, top line before deductions. So the federal supplemental employment benefit is actually greater on its own than a full-time wage at minimum wage in South Carolina, right? And other states that don't have any state minimum wage laws. And plus, if you're not working, you can avoid costs like commuting and childcare, making this even more of a boon for you. Obviously, there's an argument that this is really the fault of those states more than anything else. $290 a week is an extraordinarily low income to live on almost anywhere in the United States. Personally, I don't blame anyone for taking advantage of these benefits while they've been available. And if an employer is only offering $290 a week, $7.25 an hour, then it's hard for me to feel very sympathetic when they have trouble finding people who want to work for them. There are also many people in a variety of situations that make it difficult to work, right? I mentioned childcare is going to be extremely expensive, and some industries are still mostly shut down in some places, right, which prevents people from coming back to the jobs they had before the pandemic. On the other hand, the South Carolina state government has a different perspective on this. They're one of 8 states so far that have actually said they will opt out of the federal unemployment funding program. In other words, they're cutting off their own citizens from benefits that are coming from the federal government. Let me read from the South Carolina governor's letter to the state's Department of Employment and Workforce. Here's what he said. This labor shortage is being created in large part by the supplemental unemployment payments that the federal government provides claimants on top of their state unemployment benefits. In many instances, these payments are greater than the workers' previous paychecks. What was intended to be short-term financial assistance for the vulnerable and displaced during the height of the pandemic has turned into a dangerous federal entitlement, incentivizing and paying workers to stay at home rather than encouraging them to return to the workplace. So, South Carolina will be ending these benefits on June 30th. Montana is fully opting out starting on June 27th. Their governor put out a similar statement. He said, Montana is open for business again, but I hear from too many employers throughout our state who can't find workers. Nearly every sector in our economy faces a labor shortage. Incentives matter, and the vast expansion of federal unemployment benefits is now doing more harm than good. We need to incentivize Montanans to re-enter the workforce. Our return to work bonus and the return to pre-pandemic unemployment programs will help get more Montanans back to work. So, Montana, in that letter, the governor said they're having a back to work bonus, right? So Montana's actually diverting some of these unemployment funds to a new program, which will give formerly unemployed workers a one-time $1,200 bonus when they come back to work and stay in that new position for at least 4 weeks. Arkansas has also announced a similar plan. Their payouts will end on June 26. Unsurprisingly, there was a similar statement out of that office that said these temporary benefit programs were created to provide relief for those who are not traditionally covered by the existing state unemployment insurance program, such as self-employed and 1099 workers who lost income or were unable to work as a direct result of the pandemic. During the time when businesses were shut down and there was no vaccine to protect Arkansans from the virus, these programs served a good purpose. Now, vaccine eligibility is open to all Arkansans over the age of 16, and Arkansas is back in business. There are other states following these same cues as well. These are all red states, as you can imagine. So just to sum up here, here's a chart of the 8 states that so far have said they will opt out of the federally funded unemployment early. They're Iowa, Mississippi, Alabama, North Dakota, Arkansas, Montana, South Carolina, and Tennessee. Which state is next? Any guesses? I guarantee you that other states, particularly other red states, are going to follow suit here. So these states are taking the hardest line on this issue by totally withdrawing from federal unemployment. There are also less extreme changes taking place in other states as well. And at the federal level, President Biden touched on these issues while speaking to the press on May 10th. He said, "We're going to make it clear that anyone collecting unemployment who is offered a suitable job must take the job or lose their unemployment benefits. There are a few COVID-19 related exceptions so that people aren't forced to choose between their basic safety and a paycheck, but otherwise, that's the law." He went on to qualify that statement. He continued, "I know there's been a lot of discussion since Friday's jobs report that people are being paid to stay home rather than go to work. Well, we don't see much evidence of that. It's easy to say the line has been because of the generous unemployment benefits that it's a major factor in labor shortages. We still have 8 million fewer jobs than we did when the pandemic started. No one should be allowed to game the system, and we'll insist the law is followed, but let's not take our eye off the ball. Families who are just trying to put food on the table, keep a roof over their head, they aren't the problem." So the administration has been gently pushing back on this idea that there's some problem with providing too much in unemployment benefits, but at the same time, the administration is starting the transition back to the usual conditions for unemployment payments, including the stipulation that you have to be actively looking for work in order to maintain your eligibility. Now, some states that are continuing to pay out federal unemployment benefits are reinstating that condition on their own. That's something we've seen in Arizona, North Carolina, Rhode Island, and a few others. So I would keep an eye out for announcements from your state government as well, just so you aren't blindsided by any changes. I expect more and more states to bring back the search for work requirement over the next few months. And now that there's a precedent for ending the federal supplemental payments entirely early, before September 6th, it wouldn't shock me for more states, particularly red states, or at least states with Republican governors, to follow that model and potentially introduce new incentives like we've seen in Montana to give unemployed folks an extra reason to go back to work. As always, I will continue posting updates as this situation develops to let you know if anything changes. I want to thank everyone for watching to the end. I really do appreciate your support, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.